I'm Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times. Happy to be here on Friday, April the 3rd. I think I've got the month right today. It's kind of a spring in my step today. The legislature has gone home and it's reduced the headlines substantially and reduced the bad news substantially. But gee, there's a lot of cleanup after the legislature goes home. Lots of stuff gets passed in the last minutes that it takes a while to dig the details out. If you check the Arkansas blog today, you'll see several examples of what I'm talking about. For example, I finally obtained the full list of specifically how the pork barrel was divided among Arkansas's members of the House and the Senate. This is $20 million in state surplus. Governor Asa Hutchinson had said he was going to stop the pork barreling, but he didn't. He had to bow to the legislature's wishes. He said it was the smallest in years. In fact, it was not. There have been smaller allotments, and as a percentage of the surplus, it was a pretty big amount, almost 10% of the available surplus. It's going to go for things ranging from rural fire departments to a little monument in Little Rock, some extra money for Little Rock Zoo. $1 million is going to go to a hunger relief alliance, and so that's a good thing. Some of these things are statewide projects, but a good $14 million, something in the range of an average of $500,000 per legislator, is going to be split up among planning and development districts and rural services. And this is going to be money directed in very specific and local and I think unconstitutional ways. One year a senator sent his money to a fireworks show in Saline County. Another representative sent money to buy some sweatsuits for a North Little Rock High School football team. The Constitution doesn't look kindly upon these sorts of things. Maybe Mike Wilson will file another lawsuit. We've also discovered that the Attorney General and the leaders of the House and Senate worked out a way to handle the $20 million in surplus that the Attorney General's office won as a result of a class action lawsuit filed during the Dustin McDaniel era. This was a Standard & Poor lawsuit. There was another $4 million from another class action settlement. The law allows the Attorney General to only keep $1 million of this for consumer education. But with the other $24 million, they worked out a deal. The Attorney General, Leslie Rutledge herself, is going to be able to spend about $6 million in ways she chooses. Some of these, again, are for some statewide efforts, some related to the administration of justice, some not, like rural fire departments, which again is a hotly local issue. But $18 million did go from that settlement into that surplus fund, which swelled considerably the amount of money available divvied up for pork barrel projects. Other interesting story we discovered in the last week, 9 days of the legislature, Big Tobacco quietly dropped in a 37-page bill to regulate vaping, that is, smokeless cigarettes in Arkansas. Big Tobacco didn't used to be in favor of vaping, but then it became popular and they decided the way to make money off it was to get into the business themselves, but also make it as heavily regulated and as expensive and thus not quite as competitive with actual tobacco. So they got a bill out, sponsored by Eddie Joe Williams, who happens to receive $10,000 from Reynolds Tobacco for the PAC by which he elects other like-minded Republican legislators. Gilbert Baker, the discredited lobbyist who was involved in the Mike Maggio scandal, did the lobbying for Reynolds on this, and he's an old friend to Eddie Joe Williams too. And they got this bill through. One of the significant things in this bill, it's a local control exemption bill. It again takes away from counties and cities any ability to pass laws regulating the manufacture and sale of tobacco. Republicans like local control, except when they don't like local control. They like regulation, they don't like regulation. They really like regulation that helps big business and corporate interests like Big Tobacco. Just another case of that happening. Tom Cotton remains in the news. His remarks that gay people should have a little perspective about these religious freedom bills and understand that it could be worse. They can live in Iran where being gay is a capital offense. That continues to outrage people around the country, understandably. The New York Times has paired it up with his earlier controversial letter about negotiations with Iran. I don't think this is going to hurt Tom Cotton much in Arkansas, but I think it takes a little bit of the shine off his potential as a national candidate. Somebody who just seems a little bit, well, injudicious is a kind way to put it, I think. Some things on our blog to call attention to. I'd urge you to take a look at our Ask the Times session on video with John DePippa, the UALR law professor. He talks about what religious freedom laws are about, why he used to be a big supporter of them, why the way they've been misused has made him rethink the issue, and what the passage of the law in Arkansas means. He again makes it clear that the so-called compromise that Arkansas passed yesterday, while better than the original bill that was overtly intended to discriminate against gay people, still lacks protections, anti-discrimination protections for gay people, as the Indiana bill does. By the way, I learned today by talking to Gretchen Hall, the director of the Little Rock Convention and Visitors Bureau, that they'd gotten a communication from a major convention client in the final stages of contract negotiations for next year that said if House Bill 1228, the first controversial anti-gay bill, had been signed by the governor, they were going to cancel their convention in Little Rock next year. Gretchen Hall is hopeful the fact that there was a compromise and that HB 1228 was not passed mean that convention is still coming to town. But there are very real consequences from states and cities and other governments taking actions that look unfriendly to gay people, and I think that's a positive step, at least in our society today. Speaking of discrimination, V.L. Cox, the Little Rock artist who's had a well-received art installation here of End Hate. It's a series of doors painted with things like whites only, colored only. It caused a great deal of discussion at the Capitol when it was displayed there. Is going to have her art displayed at the Lincoln Memorial in April in Washington, D.C., and she's going to be joined by Paula Morell of Tales from the South radio show fame. They'll record stories of people about their discrimination experiences as they view this installation at Lincoln Memorial. That's a nice thing for an Arkansas artist. And finally, just enjoy your weekend. Gee whiz, no legislature in town. Maybe there'll be some good news to report Monday when I come back. I'm Max Brantley.